let's get started. I'm Angie Knoll, and I'm welcoming you to this webinar. It is great to be here. We're going to talk about putting a roadmap together that's going to help you run your business easier, and that does seem to be the question. So I'm joined today by Amanda Dar. She's our marketing coordinator at Reconciled Solutions, and Amanda will be here to assist. So if you have questions on something, you can type them in the chat, and she will make sure that we get those questions answered at the appropriate time. And then there's also a question that's more private too. So you'll be able to use the chat to reply to the more private question. But for now, everything is in the public mode. So I wanted to spend some time with you today to help you figure out what you need to make your business run easier. And running a business is not easy. I would say from my 18 years of experience, it is literally probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And, you know, when you look back and think, why is it so hard? I think there's just so much noise out there. There's so much confusion. And as a small business owner, literally, you have to wear so many hats, and managing all those responsibilities. Well, we can be great multitaskers, but it's like, what do I need to pay attention to now? What's broken in my business now? And it can be really hard when you're in the midst of the forest to see the trees and to see which one is standing out as the biggest problem at the moment. So what I have come to realize in my years of doing business is that we need some way to measure and identify the biggest broken link right now so that we can focus in on that biggest broken link and build metrics around how to fix it and have a solution that will fix it. But the thing is, problems do reoccur in our business. And so in the method that problems do reoccur, hopefully the next time that certain problem comes around again, we can be faster and more agile to be able to fix the problem because we've developed metrics and we know what we're looking for and we can identify what's broken faster in the business. So there has been times in my business where I've absolutely hated being in business. And I'm going to go back to one specifically, probably the worst memory that I have in my business when I absolutely hated the business was circa 2011. And at that time, I'd been in business about 4 years. I had 3 part-time employees, and I was constantly going to these 8 a.m. Breakfasts for the Chamber of Commerce and 5 p.m. cocktail hours. And there just wasn't as many options in 2011 for, the online stuff, for online opportunities in the middle of the day to maybe get to do some networking. So I was driving hard, going to lots of different events, and I was working my butt off. I was literally exhausted. I had such a hard time figuring out that triangle, the trilogy relationship between myself and the company making money, between the employee or contractor who was doing the work, and keeping my customer happy, and trying to figure out how those 3 pieces all fit together so that we could all be happy was something I just couldn't get my arms around. In my personal life, things were hairy at that time too. I had a 7-year-old, I had a 5-year-old, I had a 2-year-old. And when you have kids those age, there's just not enough hands to go around. You feel like an octopus. You could use eight arms to make everything happen. So I was really trying to manage a lot in my personal life, and my marriage was a mess. At that point, we had 3 busy young kids that were running all over the place. I was not making any money in my business, yet I was working all day long. So my poor husband had to man things for us when I was unavailable, which was a lot because I was going to those networking breakfasts and the 5 p.m. happy hours. And we were paying for childcare during the core hours. So that was another expense to our family, especially when I wasn't bringing any money in. So it was a pretty difficult time in my personal life. We decided to get away up to northern Wisconsin, and we borrowed our friend's lake cabin up in northern Wisconsin. It was that perfect time of the year between Christmas and New Year's when everything is slow and quiet and the world kind of stops. And so we headed up there. We were really grateful to have this cabin to be able to use because we were not in a position to be able to afford renting a hotel or staying at a resort or anything like that. And we just thought we'd go up and enjoy some of the quiet time in the North Woods of Wisconsin and enjoy some fresh fallen snow. And so one morning we got up and did just that. My husband and I headed out for a walk in the snow, and we were out walking around and we were arguing, and it was kind of, you know, dumb things. I can't think of anything in particular that just flipped me out, but I went toxic and I pushed my husband into the ditch, into the snowbank. I climbed on top of the poor man and I just started hitting him. And I was just overwhelmed. I was just at a breaking point in my business because I thought I had failed. I didn't know what was wrong in my business at that point. And so it was very difficult for me at that time. What I ended up realizing, fast forward 2024, is I just didn't speak the language of my business. And I was seeing myself as a failure in business, in my personal life, in my mommy career. I was seeing myself as a failure when I just hadn't been set up with the tools I needed to be able to identify what's broken in the business and how quickly I could turn around and fix it. So it's all these years later, and I have built a business that is repeatable, that does have metrics in it, so that I can hopefully see a problem before it's coming and I can avert disaster. That's my hope. I want other people to have that feeling of having business be a little bit easier to manage, a little bit more supportive. And so that's why we're here today. I want to present you with the framework that I have used to help put together dashboards and to be able to understand what's broken in my business now so that I can fix it, find it, fix it, and move on to the next biggest broken link. So this is a picture of Pandora's box, and I think it's just a wonderful Greek myth that kind of represents where we're going. This Pandora was said to be the first woman on earth, according to Greek mythology. And her husband decided to give her a gift. He gave her this beautiful, gorgeous box. And all he said was, you know, it's beautiful, it's lovely, but please do not open it. You cannot open it. Of course, Pandora, like any woman out there, really wanted to open that box. Curiosity killed the cat, right? I guess cats have this problem too. So she, of course, opens this beautiful box that her husband gave her as a gift. And legend has it that all the illnesses and the hardships of the people of the world started to come out of this box, and all this hardship and illness was in the air, and she got frightened. She was terrified, in fact. And she thought, I'm just gonna close the box and put it all back in there. I'm gonna shove it all back in. And so she did. She was able to close Pandora's box. But the thing that also got trapped in going back inside was the hope. The hope for the world was getting trapped back in that box. And so that being said, it was the situation where, you know, we need hope to go forward. We need what's in the box. We may not want it. We need to know about the hardship. We need to know about the illness, but we need to know about it so that we can bring hope. And that's what I hope to do today with you all as we're looking at our businesses and trying to get more familiar with what's broken. So the way that I do that is through the use of the business priority pyramid. So the business priority pyramid is this pyramid that kind of sets a priority of what needs to happen first in a business. So this is from Mike Michalowicz's book, Fix This Next. And maybe Amanda, if you could put that in the chat so folks have it. If you'd like to know more about it, you could purchase the book. We can have a call about it, but it's got this great framework called the Business Priority Pyramid. And what Mike realized is that all small businesses have kind of the same set of priority. The same things have to happen in the same order for the business to be successful. The very first thing that has to happen for a business to be a business is for there to be sales. So we have to have some revenue coming into our business. Otherwise, it's just a nice hobby, right? So sales is the very base, the very foundation of our business. That's the creation of cash so that we have something to work with. The next level in the business priority pyramid is profit. So with that profit, we're able to create stability, not only for ourselves as the business owner, but also for our team and also for our customers, so that they can come to expect a certain level of service or product that they become accustomed to and used to. The next level of the business priority pyramid is order, and that's about the creation of efficiency. So if you have great sales coming in and you have a profitable business, chances are that you've had to put in some systems, some workflows, some efficiencies to make that all come together. All of that stuff comes together in the order section, which is the creation of efficiency. From there, it goes to impact, which is the creation of transformation. And that's where clients learn to love our product or service and be advocates for our product or service and represent our product or service to those around them and share it with their friends and neighbors and family members. Legacy is the last step in the business priority pyramid, and that is the creation of permanence. I always think of that Paul Newman. So he's famous for being an actor, but as he got older, he started a food production company, and they make salad dressings and pasta sauces and things like that. And you'll see it at the grocery store, and it has a picture of Paul's face on it. And it says something about percentage of the profits goes to this foundation. That's the legacy that Paul Newman has built, because he got famous as an actor. He did not get famous for making a good salad dressing, but he built a legacy around giving forward and giving this information out to the world. So those are the levels of a small business, and one has to build on the other. It is a foundational situation. And so the first three, as you can see on the left side of this screen, those are the get scenarios. And I will tell you, as a small business coach and helping people with consultations, I spend all my time in the get section. We're never quite able to get to the give because, sales might be going well. And so then we start working on profit, and then we might move to order, but something down in sales breaks again because the environment changes. And so then we have to go back to the foundational need of sales and fix that before we're able to start climbing again. An example of this in my own life is that I'm the youngest of 8 kids. We do a family reunion once a year, and we take turns. Each year it's a different brother or sister's turn. And what we do is the person who is planning the family reunion gets to determine the location. So my family is from the farm on the Minnesota-South Dakota border. And so it was my year to plan the family reunion last year in 2023. And I was really excited to bring my family to Chicago. I thought it would be very fun for them. We had great plans. We were going to go to a Cubs game and, you know, hang out by Wrigley Field and just enjoying being with each other, which is a step outside of the comfort zone for a lot of my family members who are not used to big cities and growing up in that environment. So to get prepared for this family reunion, I wanted to get my house all sparkling beautiful. You know, we did a lot of cleaning. I planted a lot of flowers, wanted to make sure everything was just top notch for when my family came to visit. And they did. They came to visit. And we were going to go to that said Cubs game that day. And we're waiting for our Uber rides to arrive to bring us down to Wrigley Field. And all is going well until a pipe bursts in my basement and water is shooting out all over my basement. So I could care less about the Cubs game at that point. We had to figure out what was going on in the basement. There was water everywhere. And our basement, you know, it was going to be destroyed if we let that go and go to the Cubs game. So that is an example of identifying the broken link, like came and slapped us in the face or soaked us with water. So that's an example of how we use the business priority pyramid in our personal lives, and the same applies to a business. So if you think about what's broken now, that has to be fixed first. So now priority pyramid is all about. I just ask you to take a look at the survey question that's popped up on your screen and see if you can identify what do you feel is struggling in your business right now. Would it be sales or profit, order, impact, or legacy? So please go ahead and put your comments in there. All right, so we're going to go back to that Pandora's box and talk about some of the things that come out of the sales area. So here's a few different things that have to be going well in our business to be identified in sales. It looks like oh, okay. So it looks like we have somebody who said that order was a big problem in the business this week. And I agree with the this week part. It can change day to day. It can change hour to hour about what's broken in your business. You know, there's a lot of firefighting that goes on. So also when we're thinking about what's broken in our business right now and what the biggest need is for our business right now, we do kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, you know, is it order every day or was it just order today? Was this a small problem? Is this a larger problem and it's stemming from a bigger issue? So thinking through that. When we think about sales, we start with thinking about lifestyle congruence. And lifestyle congruence is understanding how much our business has to make to be able to support our own lifestyle. So as the business owner, we want to be able to make some money. And lifestyle congruence is not necessarily going on fancy vacations or driving fancy cars, but it is being able to pay for the place that you live and the reasonable car that you drive and putting food on the table and clothes on your back. So it's your day-to-day living expenses and what you need. What we can do with lifestyle congruence, it's not something that has to be calculated every day, but it is something that we do have to calculate once in a while to make sure we know that we know how much we need to sell to be able to support our basic needs for lifestyle. So we call that reverse engineering. And like I said, it's not something that has to be done every day, but it does have to be done occasionally, at least yearly. And then, of course, if you're going to have a change in life circumstance, you want to be calculating that lifestyle congruence. The next thing that popped out of Pandora's box is prospect attraction. Every small business owner needs to do prospect attraction. And prospect attraction is exactly what we think it is. It's finding the right leads for your business that fit your sweet spot and the thing that you can fulfill the best for your clients, so that the sweet spot is the alignment of our top clients running an efficient business and having that work well, and our unique differentiators. So it's where those three things come together. That's how we attract prospects. The third thing out of the box is client conversion. And I think we can all relate to client conversion. It's the process that takes us from a lead coming into the business, into the sales cycle, and getting them to pay money towards us. There's three types of sales, if you think about it. One is new opportunities and new customers. Okay, it requires a hunter as a salesperson. So you might be the hunter for your company. Those are the new opportunities you're seeking. The second one is opportunities from current clients. These would be considered increasing depth and breadth of your product line, just selling the current clients something that you haven't sold them before, or they weren't interested in before, ancillary items. This is often a result of farming, okay? And so these two types of sales really make up the majority of it. The third type of sales is just a combination of each. And we really do want to have our strategy set up so that client conversion can happen both within new opportunities and with increasing the depth and breadth of our current offerings to our current clients. So not only do we need a prospect attraction method to bring new clients into the business, we also need a prospect attraction method to increase the sales that we have with our current client base. So that's something to think about. The fourth one is delivering on commitments. And I like this one a lot because I think most of us, when we think of sales, we don't think of actually delivering on the commitments. We might think of that as a different step in the process. But I will say with clarity that if we're not delivering on what we promised, there is really no business. So it ends up being a part of the sales deliverable. So we have to think of it as kind of the different ways that we get clients. So there's a delicate balance between sales and between operating an effective and efficient business and delivering the products and services that we provide. And so I would say that sales are like fuel for our business. This is the fuel that's going to run the business. But unless we have effective and efficient delivery of the product or service promised, then we're not going to be able to have that business. And that's the cargo that we carry. Or if you're talking about an airplane, it's the people in the airplane to get people from A to B. That's what we're taking care of, is making sure their needs are met. Are you overcommitting? Are you undercommitting? Are you delivering on time? Are you sticking with what was promised? If there's emerging client problems, are you addressing them? These are all things that we have to think about in delivering on commitments. And then the last thing in here is collecting on commitments. And that also might not be thought of as part of the sales process, but again, it's super, super important. Collecting on commitments is being able to get the money from your client that you have billed them. It's getting paid. And we want to make it easy, clear, accurate, timely to receive that money so it's easy for people to pay us, because that's going to make everything in our business run better when we're able to get paid easily. So if you look at this, I just want to point out a great way to remember it would be to consider a great band named AC/DC. And we have to have all four of the steps of AC/DC in our business, which is to attract, that's prospect attraction. Client conversion is the C. The delivery is D, and C again is collecting on commitments. So AC/DC, instead of it being a great rock band, is going to be attraction, conversion, delivery, and collection. And this is a good way to think about sales and separate those processes in your head. Am I attracting the right clients? Am I converting the right clients? Am I delivering against my commitments? Am I collecting against my commitments? So the next step is profit on the business priority pyramid. So here's some of the things that come out of the profit box. This one is all about knowing your numbers, which I love as a bookkeeping firm. It's about tracking things. It's why a good bookkeeper is so important, because they're going to help you with measurability. They're going to help you set up a dashboard. They're going to help you recognize the things that are most important to your business. So the first thing that comes out when we think of profit is debt eradication. So debt eradication is choosing to eliminate debt over borrowing more so that you can support the business. So we want less debt and more cash flow coming in so that we can support the business and grow the business. Margin health is the next thing. Margin health is super important because it means that we know our revenue. We know our revenue by revenue stream, and we know our costs by revenue stream. One of the things that we're very specific about if you do bookkeeping with Reconciled Solutions is that, you know, business is made up of a whole bunch of different revenue streams. Hopefully there's some differentiators between the different things that you sell to clients. And in the same context, the cost of goods or the cost of services have different applications as well. So if you're a consultant and you hire a secondary consultant to fulfill a certain part of your consulting role, then that needs to be directly attributed to your consulting income. Whereas if you're consulting and speaking, then there might be speaking income, and there's a different set of costs that are related to speaking. And we have to understand the costs that go into the speaking separate from the costs that go into the consulting. So that would be considered the gross profit. And we want to know our gross profit for our company overall, for all the income streams together, as well as individually for the different income streams. Everybody's heard the concept of a lost leader, and that's really important to think about, because some things we sell at a very low margin in order to get more business in the door. And some things are, you know, the big fancy things, and the big fancy things should have a very high gross profit associated with them. So after margin health comes transaction frequency. A lot of people in small business forget to measure transaction frequency. Something we can think about with transaction frequency is how often somebody is purchasing a product or service. I use Amazon a lot because I have a very busy life and it just makes life easy. One of the things that makes life easy for me is the Amazon subscribe and save. And guess what Amazon is aiming to do? They're aiming for me not to forget that I have to buy filters for my furnace, but just to supply them on a regular basis so that I'm always ahead of the game, that I'm buying it more often. So Amazon, one of the ways that they attract transaction frequency is to have that subscribe and save button. I also think of things like complementary services when we're thinking about transaction frequency. So for that one, my example is Uber Eats and ordering a pizza. So probably when people first started ordering pizzas, we went to the store and picked them up and brought them home and fed our group the good looking pizza. Somewhere along the way, a pizza shop owner said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we had delivery service so we could bring it to you instead of you having to come to us? And so they added that as an additional service. And that is an example of transaction frequency. Then Uber Eats comes along, and the way they're developing transaction frequency is probably getting us to order things that we hadn't thought about having delivered before. So my example for that is my neighbor. He's a great guy and he loves a good old-fashioned drink once in a while. So it's turned out that after a long, hard day, he might just decide to order one old-fashioned drink rather than carrying all the ingredients at home to make himself an old-fashioned. And he might have that delivered through Uber Eats. One good drink, that's all he needs. He doesn't have to leave his couch and everything is good. This is another example of transaction frequency and bringing that together. Profitable leverage, that's when what we borrow has predictable results. So I'm not against borrowing money to fund our business. We absolutely need to do that sometimes. We don't have the cash to be able to front everything. So if we borrow, that's fine, but we need to have a plan for the money that it's going to last. We need to know that what we borrowed, how we're going to spend it, and what the predictable turnaround that we can expect for that money. So when $1 is borrowed, does it result in a predictable return? So that's what we want to think about in terms of profitable leverage. And the last one on our list for profit is cash reserves. So cash reserves are exactly what you think. You know, COVID-19 hit and people didn't have enough cash reserves to get them through the difficult times of losing all this business very suddenly. And a lot of people ended up going out of business as a result of COVID-19. But what happens if there's a COVID 2025 or some other event that prevents you suddenly from being able to collect on your commitments? We need to have cash reserves for that. Most people say that we want to have 3 to 6 months of cash reserves. I would say that the 3 to 6 months of cash reserves that we want to have on hand should represent the owner's pay and our operational expenses. Some people will need to have their cost of goods or cost of services as well in their cash reserves. And the way you need to think about this is, I mean, it is different by industry. If I think about professional services and trades companies, those folks need to have cash on hand because for cash on hand for their products and services, because for a large part of it, we might have to front cash before we receive cash. Now, there's progress invoicing. There's building a retainer into your exception of cash, things like that. And based on how you bill your customers and how you collect is going to determine how much of your cost of goods or your cost of services you need to keep in cash reserves. Another example of not keeping cash reserves on hand for the cost of services or the cost of goods is a lot of times in the medical services industry, things that go through insurance, like payments to a therapist. A lot of times we don't necessarily have to keep 3 to 6 months cash reserves because we can consistently expect that if a therapist delivers service, the insurance will in turn pay it in X amount of days. So there's a very clear and repetitive step of how quickly that cash gets reimbursed. Okay, so then the next thing we talk about is order. So if you have a dashboard, the goal is that you see the problem before it's developing or as it's developing, before it gets really bad. And order is the place that we're able to do that. So if we can see it coming, we might change our processes in advance of doing that. So the things that come out of Pandora's box as it relates to order are minimized wasted efforts. That's around reducing bottlenecks and slowdowns and inefficiencies. It's cleaning up crap, cleaning up our processes and how our business operates. Role alignment is the next thing. That's people's making sure that people's responsibilities are matched to their talents. And this is a very difficult one in a small business, just because we don't have very many people in our businesses. So everybody wears multiple hats. And while I would say that nobody enjoys their job all the time, we want people to enjoy their work most of the time, right? So that it's not so difficult, because when time flies, when we're doing something we love, time flies, or that fascinates us, the time goes by. And if we're not doing something that we love, every second of every minute can sit and drag on. And what's going to be most productive for your business is having somebody that's engaged in those activities that they really feel excited about and that they're interested about most of the time. With regards to outcome delegation, what we're talking about there is if the people closest to the problem have the ability to fix it. So oftentimes in a small business, like I said, we're all wearing multiple hats and our business might start to grow rapidly. And so we might be hiring really quickly before we get the processes and the outcomes all figured out, all documented. And the result of that is if you've got an employee or a contractor who needs the business owner to make a decision, because they don't have the ability to make that decision themselves, it creates another bottleneck. So we want to avoid bottlenecks in the sense of if this is the problem, is that person able to solve it themselves? Are they empowered to make that change, or do they have to check with their boss or the owner of the business, something like that? So I run a bookkeeping company. And if technology is broken, or if I'm going to consider a new technology for our company, which happens a lot, I want to get that technology into the hands of the bookkeepers, because they're the ones that do the work every day, not me. I don't do the entry of day-to-day cash. So I need those bookkeepers to have their hands on the product to be able to identify if this is a technology that we want to use in our company or not. They need to be enabled and empowered to say that this is a good choice for the company or it's not necessarily a good choice. And I find often, especially with technology, because it changes so fast, it seems so beautiful to me. The salesperson is talking to me and trying to sell me on this new technology or item, and I think it sounds great, but I give it to my bookkeepers and they're like, no, this doesn't work. No, it doesn't deliver what they said it was going to deliver. So outcome delegation can be very important. Linchpin redundancy is similar to outcome delegation, just in that can the business run without you? So linchpin redundancy means that if I step out for a week or a month or 6 months, is there still going to be a business? other people know how to fulfill my roles and the things that I do. And it's not just me as the owner, it's everybody in that position of leadership. Are they able to fulfill the roles if they were to step out, if they got hit by a bus or whatever would happen? And then the last thing on order is mastery reputation. I would love if all of our clients were trying to figure out a way to be a master in an industry. I think it happens more organically than that. You know, if you think about the best of the best in an industry, you might think of Apple, you might think of Coca-Cola or UPS or NFL, things of that nature. Those people have developed a mastery reputation in their industry. So those are some things that could potentially be broken in your business. And so what I want to do next is just talk about what's maybe broken in your own business and what that problem is. So now, originally, we took the survey with regards to that business priority pyramid. And I asked you just to choose one of those. And I'm wondering now if after you've heard me describe sales, profit, and order, if you have a different idea about what might be broken in your business or what might need improvement. So if you do, feel free to put that in. And if you don't, that's okay too. What I'm going to do next is just kind of go through some of the things that can be broken in that sales process. There were 5 different things, and some of the ways that we can measure against that and set up tracking points and dashboards to be able to support our understanding of those key areas and how we can measure it so that we can avert disaster before it happens. So if we're talking about measuring sales, we talked about lifestyle congruence, prospect attraction, and client conversion. Here's some common problems in each of the areas, problems that we hear on a day-to-day basis. So in lifestyle congruence, we hear people say they don't know how much they need to sell. They don't know what's realistic when it comes to sales. They don't know how much they can afford to pay themselves, and things of that nature. What we talked about before is that reverse engineering your business. So understanding what you need for your personal life gets reversed engineered so that we can determine how many sales you need this today, this week, this month to be able to support that number. That's what we can do. And as I said before, reverse engineering is not something that has to be happening all the time. It really only needs to happen once a year or when you've had a life change. Maybe there's a new baby in the family and somebody's not going to go back to work, and therefore the budget has changed. And so you need to recalibrate. So that's an example of lifestyle congruence. Under prospect attraction, there's plenty of things that we can think about that we could measure if we think our problem is prospect attraction. Of course, we need to be measuring the number of leads coming in. We also want to be measuring the quality of leads coming in. So having an expectation of what we're looking for in a lead, and does this lead meet that quality criteria before we proceed with them? That again is around this sweet spot and trying to identify where your best customers unite with your best efficiencies and your unique offering. We can also think of, when it comes to prospect attraction, we can think of measuring the return on investment of sales and marketing efforts. Salespeople are expensive. They are paid the most out of anybody. That's why in a lot of small businesses, the owner is still doing sales, or it's one of the very last things that they give up, because salespeople, hiring a salesperson is a very expensive thing. Marketing efforts can be very expensive as well. We are looking for a 6 to 10 times return on investment for every marketing dollar spent. And that's a big deal. One thing that does happen in small business is that we're very agile. So we can move very quickly through changing a marketing method. I usually tell my clients that I want them to be considering only 2 to 4 marketing initiatives at a time and really nailing those down and setting up measurements to see if they work. And if they work, then are you going to tweak it and keep going? Or if it's not working, are you going to stop it altogether? Or are you going to just adjust it somehow? Client conversion, some things that we can measure when it comes to client conversion is the length of the sales cycle. We can measure the close rate. We can measure the required number of touch points for a customer to go from a lead to a customer. Do we have to do, on average 20 calls or outreaches, or is it only 2? We can look at our estimates and our quoting systems and try to be more efficient and effective within estimates and quoting systems. That's a different way we can measure client conversion. Some other things that we need to measure in sales would be the delivery of client commitments and collecting on our commitments. So when you think about a delivery of client commitments and how do I measure that? How do I figure out what it is that I need to measure to deliver on client commitments? Some different things that we definitely need to track would be measuring our client complaints. That's something a lot of us don't want to track because it's, might be negative, but that's probably the number one thing you should be tracking is if your customer has a complaint, what is the complaint? Is there other people complaining in that same way? It means you need to change a step in your process. You can also measure the ease of onboarding a new client. Everything we do, we want to make it easy for our clients because then there might be more transaction frequency as a result if we've made it easy for them to buy from us. We can do client satisfaction surveys to see how our clients feel about our company. We can do a net promoter score. We always try to have our clients give us a net promoter score, and that's a way that we can track if we're delivering on our client commitments. Some other areas that you might think about is just project management software. Do you have a way that you're measuring work in progress and you're tracking work in progress that is effective and efficient? Because if you're onboarding, let's say 10 clients at a time, then they each have to have certain steps in their process and those won't be happening simultaneously. So you need some kind of project management software to measure that. The last thing and some measurements that we're going to talk about today is collecting on commitments and measuring that. So collecting on commitments means that we have a solid and steady billing process for our customers and that it's easy for them to pay. So that might mean the payment method. It might be a click and pay. It might be an exchange of cash. We just want to make it as easy as possible for our clients to pay us. It also is evident in our invoicing if it's easy for them to pay. So just making sure that our invoicing is clear and accurate and going out on a timely basis. Those are different ways that we can measure collecting on client commitments. We can also do things like progress invoicing, reviewing accounts receivables reports, and having a steady process for following up on past dues. So those are all different measurements that we could do that are related to collecting on client commitments. So that is kind of the gist of it that I wanted to talk about today. I think that in order to make our business run easier, easy peasy lemon squeezy, we need to identify what's broken now and set up metrics and measurements to track what's broken and to make a change and fix it, right? And the thing that's broken today is not going to be broken tomorrow. It's going to be something different. And that's where this business priority pyramid really comes into play, because we can then faster identify if it's a sales problem, if it's an order problem, if it's an impact problem. We want to be able to faster identify that stuff, as well as possibly being able to avert an issue before it happens by having that solid dashboard of metrics, so we can see the trends, so we can see what is typical and what we're experiencing now and how those numbers are different. Those are ways that it's going to help you point to the solution and make it easier to run your business. So we have free resources for you today. I've got the QR code here. We've got the KPIs glossary website here, and you can go ahead and click on those. Those are free resources. There are 3 things there that are going to be provided. The first is just a glossary of accounting terms, because nobody really gets into business to do accounting and bookkeeping and to understand that. So we just want you to have those different terms at your fingertips so that you can understand the different metrics, different definitions that are out there. The second is a glossary of metrics. And what we've done in that glossary of metrics is we've divided it into sections based on the business priority pyramid. So we've got measurements that are identified with the sales process, measurements that are identified with the profit and order processes. So you can kind of use that and figure out if that's a useful metric in your business. And then frequency of metrics. So we do have a handout that shows just some different frequencies, because like an average sales dollar value of a typical sale for your company, that doesn't change that much. It might be something that you have to recalculate if you have a price increase, or once a year you just want to do it, or once a quarter you just want to do it. But if your prices aren't changing that frequently, you don't have to measure your average sales dollar value every day. It can be something that's once a quarter or once a year. We talked about the lifestyle congruence. It's also not something that changes every day. But some of the things that we do want to measure with more frequency is how many leads are coming in, how many conversions on sales that we're able to get. Because the number of leads, if you're low on leads today, it's going to lead to less conversions, and less conversions means that you're going to have cash flow issues a few months from now when that rolls out, when you're short on business. So by having that dashboard, you'd be able to hopefully see that coming and maybe tweak some systems and make it a little bit easier to do business. There's also, as I said, this information is taken a lot from the Fix This Next book, this business priority pyramid. And there's also an assessment link too. So if you go ahead and ask for the free resources, then we'll give you an assessment link, and you can go ahead. It takes about 20 minutes to take that assessment, and it will give you a grade on what is broken in your business and what you need to focus on right now. Do I have any questions at this time? Okay.
There are no questions now.
Thank you for your time. And I thank you for your attendance. And I'm very glad that you joined us today. And I hope some of this stuff was useful for you. All right. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.